There are 11 images. It's a digital art on display. Each is a black background with a striking image and a story to show you one slice of this complex food security issue. The work must be considered as a whole, otherwise we miss part of the picture. The data underlying the maps represent decades of scientific research to help resolve what is probably one of the most pressing challenges facing humanity today: unsustainable and unequal food systems.
Not only are we a gardening org, we're a social organization as well. We are involved in the ERC community as a whole. Whenever there's an org fair, we are always there tabling. Any resident of ERC who wants, we give them a little tub that we loan out to them, and they can put their food scraps in it that they generate in their own home. They can put it in the tub, and then they can bring it to the garden whenever they want and dump it in, and then we process the compost for them. So I have one in my apartment over there. It's really, really nice. I just keep it under the sink, and it's a chance for us to compost even on campus. We have the chance to produce so much. We're often donating our compost to the other gardens on campus who can't produce as much.
So this is my nursery back here where I start stuff. You're welcome to go back. These are the trees we're planting for Arbor Day, so it's kind of conifer madness this year. The idea is to grow trees for the campus, so we don't have to buy them. Many of these things are just pick up seeds and put them in soil. This is part of an effort to establish an arboretum on this campus. I know many of the other UC campuses have an arboretum or a botanical garden, so I'm trying to do that here.
A little bit about the history of the Triton Food Pantry. It was established back in February 5th of 2015 after a UQ survey revealed that 1 in 4 students skip meals on a regular basis. So this is what really ignited the initiative to establish this service on our campus. We currently are partnered with the San Diego Food Bank and with Garden of Eden, which is a CSA farm in Escondido. So they're the ones that supply our fresh produce. Everything's organic and seasonal. We are the emergency food relief side of food security, so we want to make sure that students are able to explore this program and to get further food assistance for each month.
This is a community garden here at UCSD, and we're also kind of a lab for students on campus to do their projects.
Aquaponics is a eons-old system of growing fish symbiotically with plants. Somewhere around the dawn of agriculture, when farmers realized that adding carps to their rice fields not only reduced the number of pests, but simultaneously increase the yield as well. Here we plan to bring that sort of technology into the 21st century, just like anything else. And we are going to introduce a whole bunch of different computer sensors into it. Each sensor is going to be assigned an IP address or a USB serial address, and they will all communicate with a centralized computer node. However, later we plan to actually have a two-way interchange between our data and our system. So right now we're only getting it coming to us, but we would like to be able to automatically have our system play with that data and, let's say, send more water downhill. So if it's low in potassium, we add more potassium.
This is our Aeroponics project. It is a technique of farming and gardening popularized by NASA. It's revolutionary in the fact that it does not require any growing media whatsoever. In order to compensate for the lack of growing media, what we do is we atomize water. We pass it through a pump that pumps at around 40 psi. Then we pressurize it in the accumulator tank. That accumulator tank brings it to the Goldilocks zone around 80 to 100 psi. We have a simple solenoid, which is basically an electrical valve that regulates when to release the 80 psi to 100 psi water. That travels through these high pressure tubing. The tubing then enters these totes. Once the atomized water exits the misters, it directly hits the plant roots. The timing of the mister is typically around 8 to 10 seconds. So we do that every like 5 minutes, depending upon the type of plant. And then that constant spraying and misting of the plant would result in extreme nutrient input.
I've been working on the Anaerobic Digester project here for a little bit over a year. Basically, there will be bacteria that will digest this food and break it down to generate biogas as well as sludge. And the biogas can be used to generate electricity, while the sludge can be used as like a nutrient-rich fertilizer. Been processing about 300 pounds of food waste per week. And a lot of it comes in like really big chunks. So first we have to go through a pre-processing system, garbage disposal, as well as a sewage pump that will pump it into this first tank. This first tank, the hydrolysis tanks, that'll move over to the second tank here, and the third tank, which are both methanogenic tanks. So basically there's like methanogenic bacteria in these that will break down like the smaller polymers and convert it into methane. Piping here that goes into a bag here to store like the dirty unpurified gas. And then we're going to be putting that through like a water scrubber here, which will act as like a carbon dioxide filter. And then from there, we'll have like a hydrogen sulfide filter and a water trap. And then that'll be going into the second bag right behind here.
Another output of the system is all the digestate that comes out. Once it comes out from this black container that you see over here, we immediately aerate it using this air tube to begin killing and destroying all the anaerobic bacteria. It filters all of the big chunks and solids into these two containers, and then once the remaining digestate is just in a liquefied state, it gets pumped into a nitrate processing chamber that also contains a lot of these filters in finite, really small mesh pieces that houses and grows nitrifying bacteria. The oxygen dissolves in the nitrate bacteria to allow for all the ammonia to convert into nitrates. Once we get enough biogas and it's converted into electricity, we convert it all to make it a self-sustaining system. Contained here is going to be used for hydroponics, which produces plants that can also be put into the digester and make a self-sustaining cycle.
Starting from Jose water treatment project, once the nitrate-rich water is ready, the water is gravity fed to the reservoir where the pH and the nutrient content is adjusted. The water will pump up through this line to the top of the biogas system, where the nutrients firm technique trays will be set. After passing the NFT system, the water will come through this pipe and return back. This will cause a constant movement of water, enabling enough dissolved oxygen for the growth system. In the future, we intended to use this area between the NFT tray as a living wall. So imagine a green wall, no, a green roof.
So what we're going to do is with the biogas system, we're going to have the biogas hooked up to a generator, which then connects to our batteries. When our solar batteries drop beneath a certain point, like let's say 10%, the biogas generator will kick in and act as a backup power supply. We don't have any one, large group and everything. It's all, we still have the silos, but those silos are all communicating with each other. We have the waste transportation, we have the waste processing, we have the gas purifying, we have the wastewater treatment, and then we have the hydroponics, and then we have the renewable energy grid that ties it all together. So that's 5 different student organizations, 5 different student projects, all going on and all working with one another, because that's really the only way you're going to be able to build projects to this sort of scale. Because the raw reality is you have about 4 years as top of all the classes that you need to do to make something happen, and no one person is ever going to be able to make this possible.
We're all different majors. I'm a biochem major. You're a computer engineer. Enid's environmental chemistry. We have biology. We have art major. We have everything here, and everyone works together because we all have kind of the same interest in gardening and stuff like that.
The University of California extension system is that, as opposed to other states, we advisors have to create our own information and then disseminate that to farmers in the area of expertise that we have. For example, I have to generate my own research. I have to come up with research ideas, topics, in a way, get the grants, get the funding, the financial support needed, execute that project, and then disseminate those results and research to the grower community. Business people who make a lot of money in other industries lose their business sense when it comes to agriculture. Emotions take a hold of them and they decide, this romantic view of being a farmer. And they forget all the business sense that allowed them to make the money so they could afford to buy that land or that property. For one is you're coming in brand new. You don't have any farming expertise. You're jumping into a charge pool. Agriculture is a very competitive business. The best example of a free entry and free exit system. I mean, people come and go. The other thing is a good year in agriculture somewhere is the result of a crisis somewhere else. Interesting here is that the delivery system for water is the same as the residential water delivery. So agricultural water use subsidizes residential water use because the system was developed for high volume of water. Imagine if agriculture went away, that infrastructure is in place and you would have to support it with only residential use. Maintenance costs and the cost of water would be enormous. I have mixed feelings about local food movements and the perceived impact that it may have in generating value, really, for the challenge is that it is driving the political agenda in most agricultural counties, but it may not necessarily be a solution to the food crisis we have, because we're it's being done sort of at the expense of growers who control the vast majority of productive resources, but there's got to be a balance there. I'm okay with raising the profile or the agenda for food, local food production, but also support the farmers that don't necessarily fit that model.
About community organizing is that we're organizing for social change, to really create an opportunity for people in neighborhoods to have a more active voice in the democracy that represents them. How do we really help people to begin to get in touch with what's going on environmentally? Are we going to really be able to use food as an organizing tool for people in this neighborhood? And the university, through Keith, he said basically what we can do is we can provide some of the latest technology, the science, the theories, all those things that's going on that we're learning about at the university, and really see if we could transfer it here. Our job as the organization was to set this project up and then to bring the community members in.
It's a community composting project. So we partner with local community gardens to actually host the hubs, and we partner with local businesses in the community, and we take their food waste and we come here and we turn it into compost. We actually offer these workshops where we kind of teach people this business model and give them the opportunity. So instead of forcing people into a certain role, we kind of look at what they're good at and try to help nurture them and move them in that direction. And there's a lot of regulations that we're still kind of working around regarding the transport of waste. It became really difficult for us to be able to function because there were certain regulations, so large waste management companies were the only ones that were a player in this.
No amount of food will ever solve hunger, because hunger is not about access to food. There is plenty of food in this community, in this country, to feed everyone. Hunger is about poverty and lack of economic opportunity. It is not that people can't get the food, it's that they can't buy the food. And so we thought, how can we not only feed the food line, but actually shorten it? And so we baked in a culinary job training program into our DNA. And
We operate a robust culinary school for men and women with significant barriers to employment. The students, as part of their training to learn their culinary skills, are taking all of that surplus fruits and vegetables that we secure from wholesalers and farmers, and they're turning it into thousands of nutritious meals for hunger relief organizations.
The Jacobs family is investing up to around $300 million in this neighborhood, which is one of the most underinvested neighborhoods in the whole region, because we hope to actually turn over all of these assets over to them by 2030, if not sooner. What does that mean? You know that old adage about teaching folks how to fish instead of giving them fish? That is nowhere near good enough for us. The nonprofit model is about giving thousands of organizations, potentially hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars, but just enough to keep them doing what they're doing, not to actually transform anything significantly enough so they don't need you any longer. What we're doing here is what's called a place-based nonprofit, meaning all of the family's philanthropy is dedicated to this one neighborhood to see if we can transform the lives of everyone here forever. So not just teaching how to fish, which we do, but teaching the residents how to buy the lake that the fish live in, so they don't need us or anyone like us ever again. That's our mission. Resident ownership of neighborhood change. We're going to change this neighborhood, but only if the residents can own it and learn how to manage it and be able to have an asset that they can pass along to their children. First-time home buyers from the neighborhood, if they were accepted, they got into a financial literacy program, and then they actually loaned them the deposits. And to their surprise, if they stayed there 5 years later, they forgave the deposit loan to try to get them to be homeowners instead of renters forever. There's an old adage that goes, one's grandfather becomes a soldier so that his son or daughter can become a business person or a merchant, so that his son or daughter can become an artist, right? Someone has to have sacrificed along the line for someone to have the liberty and the privilege of making choices that are not just about survival.